Maimonides describes the soul thusly. Many people think of the soul as Casper the Friendly Ghost, some ethereal white, light kind of material that's not associated with the body. We've all seen the ghosts on TV that look like people. In fact, I have a friend, an acquaintance by the name of Miriam Adahan. She's somewhere out in the ether in Jerusalem teaching. And at one point, she told me she was a medium. And she helped people with their problems, with people who had died. And she had this little kiosk-type store, just barely enough for people to come in. It was a few feet wide. And she had a chair and a table. People would sit at the other side. And one time, a little girl comes in with a man. The little girl was troubled. And she sat down, and the man sat down next to her, in the chair next to her, and she's watching all of this. And it was obvious to her that the little girl did not see the man. The little girl, a teenager, began to speak, and she said she had just lost her father. She loved him very much, and she misses him so terribly. She just doesn't know what to do, how to cope. And so Miriam immediately put the two together, and she looked at the man smiled, and she began describing the man, how he parted his hair and what kind of clothing he would wear. And she said, the little girl asked her, how do you know that about my dad? So she said, he's sitting right next to you. Now, what does this mean? If Miriam's not a liar, and she actually saw this, and I know she's not a liar, so what does this really mean? And what exactly is a soul? The soul is a set of ideas, intellect, a living set of ideas. It's not like a thought that starts from a brain and is expressed, but the soul creates thoughts. And while it's in the body, it's engarbed in the body. But the soul is a thinker. That's what a soul is. What is the soul supposed to think about? Well, you figure it out. It's supposed to think about the baseball score as well. After it dies, I think it's really interested about the pennant races in your city. The soul wishes to understand the universal principles that govern this world and the one who made the universal principles. Essentially, the soul wishes to understand God. That's what the soul is. The soul is an intellect that wishes to understand how we got here and the thing that started all of it and how it governs. The soul, in essence, wants to understand God. And the more a soul understands God, the more it behaves accordingly. If you recognize that God is in control of your life, so you treat other people the way you want to be treated, not because you feel bad, or not because you feel guilty, or not because you're fearful of the law, but because that's the way God wants us to treat others. And so the soul is essentially an intellect that wants to understand God. So how does the soul manifest itself in the garments that it would wear while it was alive? And the answer is, the human being is a composite of all of his experiences. We, if we were to look at our souls are made. What do I mean that our souls are made? We make our ideas. We come to certain conclusions. We come to certain thoughts. And the way that our soul is is the conclusions and the viewpoints that the soul has throughout its lifetime. The reason why it says, for example, that a soul who does not believe in the resurrection will not be resurrected. What does that mean? It means that the soul does not have, or did not have the capacity, did not want to have the capacity to believe that there exists an existence beyond its physical life. And because the soul could not conceive of an existence beyond its physical life, that's why the soul can't continue afterwards, because life after death requires us to know that there is an independent existence outside of the body. If the soul did not entertain that possibility, then it cannot understand existence past the body. So, perhaps the soul will be taught that in the next life. I don't know. Perhaps it will recognize that at that point, but it cannot educate itself past life. You can only educate yourself during your lifetime. You are what you think, and you cannot think differently than you were while you were alive. That's who your soul is. And so, this person, this man, was a composite of all of his thoughts and all of his experiences, and how he saw himself. And whatever the soul was reflected in some way that it could be seen by a spiritual person as the father of this girl. The man appeared as he wanted to appear, as he had been throughout his lifetime, a father caring for a child, and appeared with the same garments, the same feelings, the same ideas, because that was the image the child had of him. That was the image he wished to convey to the child, but the child couldn't see him. A medium could.